No one was injured when a Latin and electronic music festival stage fell down at a formal NATO base near Naples, but authorities revoked the event's permit, or at least delayed it for a few weeks.
This happens at state fairs all the time. I mean, occasionally you get those instances. Well, it just happened almost in the D.C. thing at the event that was happening on the lawn. That, I think, may have been somebody not paying attention or trying to do something during rehearsal and losing grip.
I saw the piece come down, and I'm like, there's a reason they put safety tethers on everything.
And that looked like paneling, not so much a fixture, but still.
Funny thing is, the closer it gets, the more it looks like a piano.
Coming up next, our AV product lead time's doomed. The most exclusive movie launch in years is actually on film. Last week, LED walls you can actually touch. This week, how about LED stadium floors? Let's get into it. This is AV Week, episode 778, Hanging by a Thread. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest news and stories in AV and the IT world. I'm Patrick Norton, in for your regular host, Tim Albright. Got 3 stories to start up for you. Our AV product lead time's doomed. The most exclusive movie launch in years is actually on film. And last week, LED walls you can actually touch. This week, how about LED stadium floors? Let's get into it. First up, we're all AV pros here, so tell me if you're not just a little bit curious to see The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's latest epic production that opens today in a legit IMAX 70mm theater. Only 25 theaters in the U.S. support the format, 41 across the globe have the film projectors capable of playing the massive format. That's out of 2,000 IMAX theaters around the world. I'm not an analog kind of person, but I am tempted to haul to Nashville to catch it just to see what a full-on contemporary IMAX camera shot 70mm production looks like. If you use Canva and Corbett, you're going to love Canva integration for Corbett Anywhere. You can now literally push your design straight to your signage from Canva, and notes Travis Kemp, Chief Product Officer at Corbett, secure sign-in, publishing permissions, and full audit trails are all still included. Best of all, it's free if you're already using Canva and Corbett. What I'm thinking of is the most college sports title in forever. ASB Glass Floor LED Court College Basketball debut brings mixed reviews and advertising potential. Rave Pub's Dylan Skinner covered the LED flooring used in the Big 12 basketball tournament this year. Essentially, the glass courts lit up the three-point line after made shots. And also that players and coaches had concerns about traction on the surface, which led the conference to switch to hardwood for the semifinal games. Now, the courts have been used a lot in Europe, and I think in an under-19 World Cup tournament. ASB Glass Floor CEO Chris Thornton counters that the courts offer enhanced shock absorption, providing superior protection for joints and ligaments, critical factors in elite level basketball. Essentially, that the LED courts make for maximum health, safety, and player longevity. And of course, that the LED courts, quotes, allow for the dynamic integration of content and sponsorship powered by real-time tracking and data analytics. Because you know what? You should be able to make more money from the flooring too. Gotta say, I'm curious to see what a Nike ad looks like under the player's feet. We might find out. Will 2027 be the worst year in history for AV lead times? That's the question asked by AV Magazine's Guy Campos, and that's in response to SK Hynix CEO Kwok No-young telling Reuters, "We forecast next year will be the worst year in the industry's history from the supply perspective." Adding that he believes demand would outstrip supply beyond 2030. Now, they're a memory company. They sell memory. They're on NASDAQ or about to be on NASDAQ. I'm enough of a cynic to point out that the interview in question was taking place before SK Hynix started trading on NASDAQ. And I can think of worse things for shareholder value than telling the universe that demand for your product will be unhinged for years to come. I'm going to put that one in front of the panel. Is supply an issue? Is cost an issue? Is it really an issue in AV? Well, we'll find out in a second. That's your AV news for the week. Stick around. We got a great conversation coming up. This is AV Week.
Hey, listeners. It's your AV sneakerhead, Jennifer Weaver. Listen to AV Career Masterminds, where I chat all things job-related in the audio-visual industry. You can find AV Career Masterminds where you subscribe to podcasts.
Welcome back. Now we bring in our fantastic roundtable with us to discuss the news and information we've gathered this week. BC Hatchett, Director, Classroom Technology at Vanderbilt University. It's mid-July. I got to ask, are there summer projects you're wrapping up for the school year? Are you in full insane mode, or is everything super chill and moving 100% to plan?
We're just hanging out, drinking sodas, playing video games, playing darts every day. Nothing at all going on right now. Completely calm.
I feel like the man may be fronting a little bit when he says that.
Just a little. Sleep is an option these days. So
I'm going to turn over to George Tucker, event staging technical specialist at Corporate Audiovisual Services, writing, or I should say growing and mentoring a team of technicians, AV Living Legend number 69. Insert your own joke here. And something you mentioned I want to call out. You're doing a pirate training for would-be AV professionals in the New York area. Is that coming up?
Yes, we're going to be swashbuckling and sword fighting all the way through the early September. Yeah, it's called Pirate University. I'll give you more details later, but we do this to tutor and nurture young people into the business. There's not enough young people coming in. There's too many graybeards like me, so we'd like to give them the opportunity and skills and a way into the workforce for that up here.
So I got to ask you, gentlemen, and this may be a question more for BC than you, George, although, George, you probably have much to weigh in on. The last story I was talking about with memory prices, are you guys feeling the pain of increased memory costs at this point, or is it just something that's more you're aware of and it's more impacting the IT sides of businesses you work with or near?
So far, more on the IT side. I'm on the same team as our what we call our lifecycle management team that does all the ordering and purchasing of computers for campus. And yeah, they're constantly talking about how lead times are starting to extend and how prices have just gotten insane lately.
Yeah.
We're not looking at any kind of like COVID era lead times for machines, but the pricing apparently is getting into the nosebleed section on some of this stuff.
The pricing is incredibly unhinged, especially for simple stuff like laptops. I mean, in theory, memory's in just about everything, and it's going to impact cost. Are either of you seeing any sort of supply chain lead time pain at this point, or is it really just, oh my goodness, that costs what? And then it becomes do we want to pay for this now or pray for memory to come down in the future? On
our side, it's mostly pricing. We're just, on the AV side, we're seeing a little bit of pricing bumps here and there, but like nothing like what we've seen in the past, and I'm hoping that trend continues.
Are you thinking back on COVID lead times to prepare for the future, or are you just leaving COVID where it lies, or COVID supply chain issues? Sorry.
I would love to leave COVID where it lies, but I think that informed so many of our decisions back then that we do kind of build in some extra pad now just out of habit.
That makes sense. Got another story from AV Magazine. I'm just going to start with a quote. No one was injured when a Latin and electronic music festival stage fell down at a formal NATO base near Naples, but authorities revoked the event's permit, or at least delayed it for a few weeks. If you haven't seen the video, if you're not watching it right now, it is honestly disturbing. Your basic massive stage configuration with a huge shading device up on the top and all of the rigging gets blown over backwards. And it looks like something you're using to mash grapes or whatever you mash with a giant, 70-yard by 40-yard. It's just I watched the video because I saw the video and I'm like, oh, it's shaking and it looks a little collapsed. And then the video finally stops stuttering. And the whole thing just falls right over and completely collapses. No one was on site, thank goodness, because if they had been, I cannot imagine how people would not get injured. I also cannot imagine how much the hardware they may have lost cost when that thing hit the ground. And it begs the question, did somebody forget that safety is important, or high winds collapsing a massive festival stage? Is that a force majeure act of God thing? Does it depend on the speed of the winds? George, I'll ask you to respond first. What was your reaction to seeing that?
Well, it's the worst nightmare. I mean, at any event, whether it's, a couple of the AV tent and the equipment on an outdoor event, right, or a giant stage setup like this, it's your worst fear that people are going to get hurt, equipment's going to get hurt, and the event doesn't go on. You try to take all of the precautions you can, but there's certain things like straight winds coming in and unexpected high velocity that you can't really build a temporary structure to withstand, at least in the time frame of festivals and permits allow, right? So you do your best and you follow all the rules, but this seemed to take everybody by surprise, and it just whooshed in and collapsed everything. Now, I suspect that there may have been still some stuff to do because the event hadn't started yet, and they were still finishing touches, so there may have been a few things here and there that wouldn't button down, but I don't think it impacted the safety as much. It was just, you had those giant video walls, you had the fabrics on the side, giant sails that caught the wind and took it right down. Again, the biggest thing I know, and all my Aussie friends, was like nobody got hurt. As tough and brash as the stagehands can be, losing a brother is not a good thing to hear, no matter where they are.
Losing a lot of them because, depending on where the front of that, I couldn't quite tell where the front of the I don't know what you call the top of one of those stage rigs.
Yeah. It looked like it fell back into the backstage area. This happens at state fairs all the time. I mean, occasionally you get those instances. Well, it just happened almost in the DC thing at the event that was happening on the lawn. The stage parts came down. There was a couple of videos of stage parts coming down. That, I think, may have been somebody not paying attention or trying to do something during rehearsal and losing grip.
I saw the piece come down, and I'm like, there's a reason they put safety tethers on everything.
Yeah. And that looked like paneling, not so much a fixture, but still.
No, I was in a television studio in San Francisco during a minor earthquake, and we tested the safety tethers on 3 lights. Because they happened to be at an angle and the earthquake was shaking in the right direction to just tear apart the basic mounts. And for one of them, I was very, very happy that the safety tether was there. I mean, I don't think of Vanderbilt as being in severe weather territory or maybe completely misguided BC. I mean, you guys obviously do anything that's above anybody's head obviously gets safety tethered. Do things like this make you like walk around and start double checking everything or is that? I'm also not trying to insult your technicians. I'm just having a conversation here.
No worries. I mean, we do get some storms. We get tornadoes. Out in East Tennessee, we might get the occasional little small earthquake that rumbles a little bit. Nothing crazy like this, but whenever we're doing installations, even though it's not the massive outdoor things, we're still installing speakers and projectors and devices in the ceiling. And if you've got a classroom with 30 or 40 people, that's a pretty big spread of folks that things can fall and hit somebody on the head and injure them or God forbid something worse. So, I mean, you've got to make sure you're installing things safely and testing those and conforming to all the standards. Otherwise, you're creating massive, massive problems. Last thing I want is to get a phone call saying, "Hey, a projector fell on a kid's head." I mean, that's the nightmare right there.
It's something you should look at. Like, it's a professional hazard, right? Especially if you work live events or install like big events. I'm not going to name the convention center, but it's in New York in the 90s. You would often look up and find Apogee speakers, if anyone remembers what those are, big, heavy processed speakers hanging by their safeties, with the yoke flying unbelievable because something happened. And it may have happened overnight, but there they were. And you look up and you let somebody know, and they're like, yeah, we know about it. We'll get a lift up tomorrow. But, before the state troopers came in, this was. Is that giving away too much? But you do have to be very, very cognizant and thoughtful about this. Like, we've had instances I've heard about where, you put up drape line and somebody doesn't tether the drape line properly or tries to hang something off of it. And you don't do that. You know what I mean? You have your sets of standards and structures to handle that so you don't, we don't have a lot of time. I get it, but safety first or otherwise someone will get hurt.
I was helping somebody strip the tech out of a room that none of us had built. And somebody was pulling along a speaker cable. And what they discovered is that it was rather well tethered to a subwoofer that had been hidden. Basically, I say hidden because I can't call it mounted above the ceiling tiles in the corner. And the upside is nobody got hurt. The downside is that I now know what a 45-pound subwoofer sounds like when it drops 15 feet to the floor.
Yeah, oh man, I remember we ran into something where we had a projector installed in a conference room. It wasn't something we did. It was a department went out and did it. And about 2 months after we found out it was installed, we got a call saying, "Hey, can you come look at this? It just doesn't look right. The image keeps dropping." So we walked up there and looked, and when they installed it, they just installed like a pan on the ceiling grid itself. It was not anchored to the deck with anything. So it was literally
drop ceiling?
Yeah, drop ceiling. In a drop ceiling. It was this 45-pound projector and mount was starting to pull the ceiling down on top. I was like, all right, we're demounting that right now, and we're getting somebody out here to fix that. So
good grief.
I like to call that a teachable moment.
It was a teachable moment. The company that did it came in, was there within 30 minutes with aircraft cable and was starting to shoot points, and they could not have been more apologetic. So,
oh my goodness. Appreciate the response time. And nobody got hurt. Shifting gears, our own Tim Albright writes about on AVNation.tv this week. Between that cheap TV you get on sale from Best Buy at 4 o'clock on a Tuesday, because you know what? It's just going in a huddle room, and a legit professional display in AV technology versus consumer electronics. What changes at work? As Tim writes, quote, and if you've ever dealt with a whole lot of rooms, this might smell familiar. 18 months later, the panel is dead, the warranty covered parts, but not the loaner until the business needed to keep the room running, and nobody can find a replacement with the same input configuration because the model was discontinued 2 product cycles ago. The room sits unusable for 11 days while a new display gets sourced and remounted. So was that $600 or $400 or $200 panel a deal, or the cheap foundation for future pain? I mean, have either of you ever had to justify buying commercial gear in place of consumer gear?
All day, every day.
Ouch.
I mean, it's one of those things, May, June starts rolling around, and those funds are starting to hit the end of fiscal. So departments will take their P cards out and go to Best Buy and get that nice $300 flat panel and be like, hey, can you all mount this on the wall? And I'm like, no, that's not commercial rated. We can't do it. And then we're working on projects, and why are we spending $800 on this flat panel? I can get it at Best Buy for $250. And I'm like, there's a reason you can get it for $250. So yeah, we run into this and all the time. And I think at this point we've kind of run up enough of a reputation with all the project managers and department heads that they know why we do what we do, but we still run into it quite often.
It's an interesting thing in the live events. We're a mom and pop company, so we have commercial grade hardware everywhere. Our projectors, our audio gear, etc. But when it comes to the 86-inch and 96-inch monitors that we need to display, the turnaround and the way that we make money, buying commercial, while I can source parts if I need to fix it or I can control it, my need is not so great in saying that it needs to fit that ISO so-and-so and so-and-so. It needs to be bright, it needs to be clean, it needs to run forever, and then I need to be able to replace it easily. I also run some of the repair here, everything from laptop screens to, yes, some of the plasma screens. You can get the screen part, and they're actually applied just like a laptop screen is. It's just this little tape and 1 or 2 connectors, and you can sometimes source them. Not always. So that frustration of, yes, I cannot get the source, and it's not the same, and it looks different. We have to buy in multiples at times to make sure of that. There is a cost concern sometimes when you're doing so many shows that you need to put that kind of screen up. Because even digital signage stuff doesn't look good to an audience, right? When you're presenting it as, say, the outlier screens or the green room or the overflow room. We have a bunch of these old NEC, really industrial. I love them. They were built in the 1950s, and I can take them apart with a screwdriver, and it's great. But they're ungainly, they're heavy, they're hard to move. They cost a lot of money to put on a truck because then that's a lot of weight. So, yeah, we do sometimes make that consideration where I buy a lot of my TVs from more like retail outlets, and they last a good long time. They make their money, and we change them out.
Makes sense. I mean, are there any repairability, life cycle? I mean, obviously, it's a little bit different for George and BC, right? Because you're dealing with live events and a lot of mobility versus having to maintain. What do you have, like 300-400 classrooms at Vanderbilt, BC?
We're after this summer, we'll have about 550 something after this summer.
Oh my goodness. I mean, is product life cycle your biggest nightmare, and being able to still source the product by the time you get to that 500th room in an upgrade, 550th room?
It is. Like, we've got rooms that are 7 years old on their, that are being life cycled out this year that are on a completely different standard than what we currently have. So we usually get to about the 3 or 4 year mark and try to start cycling through some of our spare stock just so that it doesn't go to waste and we haven't wasted those dollars. But yeah, it's kind of like that old analogy. You're building a wall, and by the time you get done with it, the beginning part of it is crumbled. So you got to go back to the start and do the whole thing over again.
The Sisyphean nature of AV technology. This is a fun story Tim found. Innovateonthenet.net, which is something I'm going to be able to say correctly the first time someday in my life. They were posting Audio Technica has announced the availability of a Dante-enabled version of its recently released ATSP30 ceiling speaker for small to medium-sized meeting rooms. And Tim wants to ask, and I'm doing this for Tim, are amplifiers dead if we can run power over Ethernet speakers anywhere? I am an amp nerd, so I have my opinions on this. BC, George, what are you thinking about when you hear something like that?
Well, the answer to that is yes, no. It depends on the application, right? I mean, you look at this product, it's a passive with an active. It's Dante controlled. Something like for UBC, right? You have complete control and complete access to these units that you can monitor them, you can alter them, you can do all the things you need to do to them, and still actively understand. Hey, this one says it's down. They're saying it's too loud, but it's you get all this metadata information that you can then make sure that your rooms are running. For high impact, large crowd stuff, the built-in stuff is just not going to do it. I mean, look, I use a lot of self-powered speakers in some of our smaller events. Those are okay, but in the big ones, we have amplifiers to spread that array across the large crowd, whether it's a graduation or a big ballroom. So they're not dead in that sense. And from your idea of you're saying the high fidelity stuff, an amplifier is going to outweigh, or a separate amplifier and even a separate EQ in your whole signal chain is going to be clearer and crisper and more controllable when you have those. But again, application, I would not be afraid to put them in. I wish in my days when I worked at Crestron and a couple of integrators that we had something like that, because it would make diagnosing a problem remotely so much easier.
So much less cable to pull.
Yeah, that too.
BC, is it just another potential tool in the toolkit, or just, whatever the technology that works now is what you guys are going to be working towards?
No, 1,000%. I mean, it goes back to, what are you going to use it for? I mean, in some areas, it definitely would be cool. It'd be cost effective. I've got hard to reach spots to get something from a rack to a ceiling, but I can get our low voltage people to get a drop installed where it needs to go. But there's converse of that. I'm paying about $500-600 per drop to get those installed. So plus you got to look at what PoE class you have available coming off the switch. You might not have enough to actually power the speaker to the level it needs to go. So are amplifiers dead? No, but it is a cool screwdriver to keep in the toolbox, so to speak.
You'll take my Macintosh from me by cold, dead hands.
Absolutely.
I'm an ATA guy myself, but I understand the love of the Macintosh.
There you go.
Gentlemen, George, BC, what's the best place to find you if folks are looking for you on the internet? George?
You can find me on Threads. I am Tucker2s. I'm also on LinkedIn all the time, although less so these days as we get less busy. But you can reach me there, and know that you can go to corporateav.com. If you're in New York City or New York area, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we give a free pirate university to especially younger people and people entering the business, to give them some of the hands-on skills from lighting to stage building and craft like that. So if you're around, it's free. Come on down, have a couple of beers, and we actually have the live jams every day afterwards.
Nice. BC?
You can find me on, I guess we're calling it X now, at BC Hatchet. I'm also on LinkedIn, or feel free to email me at bc.hatchet@vanderbilt.edu.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AV Week episode 778. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to AV Week on your favorite podcatcher, and head on over to AVNation.tv for more articles and news for AV professionals.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is Erin Marmoran of EdTech. The world of higher ed AV is growing rapidly. That's why each month we hear from the best and brightest from colleges and universities all over the U.S. Check out EdTech on avnation.tv or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.